Mike's. All right, guys, I'll call this meeting to order. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this is a work session meeting for March 7th, 2023. We have a few items on the list, but first of all, I wanted to welcome back Emily Castillo after having her baby. We know what happened after our last work session, so hopefully things, yeah, I know, we're gonna keep it nice and tight. So with that in mind, let's first get our Shay to come up and talk about Parks and Rec. And Shay, please turn on that mic if you don't mind. Thanks.
I will keep this short and sweet. Okay, so one of the items I kind of wanted to brainstorm with you guys about, besides, I think we're going to help Top of the Rockies stuff Easter eggs this week, so we're excited about that to pitch in. We have been meeting about trying to create the music program here in Alpine, kind of like a Music on Main, but Alpine based. So where we're at is we roughly got 4 dates we're trying to bounce around, trying to decide between Tuesday or Thursday. And I know that's been of some discussion. I've got the bands. I at least have 2 lined up, and I'm on my 3rd, and hopefully we'll get to my 4th. But I mainly wanted to bounce it off of you guys. What we're thinking is the Marge Grover Park. It'll be in the gazebo, the band will be, so we don't have to have a stage or if the weather turned on us. And then I've been working with Dave Walters in regards to sound and sponsorship. We'll start to kind of reach out to the community, see what we can do as far as sponsorships go. So that is in the works. I'm hoping we could get everyone booked within the next few weeks so that we know we're officially able to do it. So if you guys have questions on that, I know we chatted with you, Jeremy, and I'm open. I mean, I know this is something new. We want to start kind of small. It won't be, over the top, but it'll at least get our feet wet, and then we don't interfere on Wednesdays with Melvin. We're just trying to figure out which night makes the most sense.
Isn't Farmers Market Thursday?
It is.
That might be a good thing.
And that's kind of that's kind of parlaying from what we were talking about.
We've been discussing that a little bit because actually what that could do is give a boost to Farmers Market.
Yeah.
And also we have those people that are kind of captured there and they stick around for the music.
So because what we're thinking is if farmers, I think it's normally 4 to 7. Okay. Yeah. So maybe if they could be setting up at like 6:30 and then we kind of parlay into that, we're hoping to get maybe 2 to 3 food trucks and then see, how it plays out. If we can have Melvin sell beer or one night we have the Moose, I mean, we can spread the love, all those sorts of things.
I think Thursday nights
is more of a
combine it with the farmers market. I think.
Okay, just to kind of give that a oomph.
Yeah. So then you're
Okay.
like trying to get people to go out 2 nights in 1 week, also.
And it's the first Friday, so.
That is very true.
I think it makes sense, but
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. So we're just going to keep plodding along on that. And then as far as Easter, I know we officially are going to do that Saturday the 8th at 10 o'clock. We're going to match everybody else in the valley. If there's anything else that comes up, let us know. I think right now we're just trying to focus on those things. I also hope we're working on a bid of resurfacing one of the basketball courts into pickleball with basketball. So I'm kind of toning down on my final bids there to see what we actually could get and then what sponsorships we could get there as well. So I think the next phase is just what will summer bring at this point.
yeah.
So
Thank you so much.
Okay.
For doing,
No problem.
One quick thing I guess we should say regarding the summer concert series.
Yes.
We don't have an official name yet. So if anyone in the public has some awesome idea for a concert series in Alpine, come up with anything and send it to me
Yeah.
or the Parks and Rec email. What is that, Shay?
I think it's Parks and Rec at what is your Alpine?
Alpine.
Alpine
WY. Yep.
So,
And we are going to be having a new Facebook page, so that will be posted very soon. We're trying to get all our ducks in a row. So,
sounds good.
thank you guys.
Shay.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions for Shay while she was up there? We should, no? Okay. Christine, perfect timing. We should talk about the land use development code updates. Okay. No, you can come right over here though if you want. Sit right next to Monica.
Oh, look.
How sweet. Okay. Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Well, so I have gone through all of your suggested changes. Monica, which one is that on? Is that on the packet?
There's a second document
Okay.
in your folder, and that's separate, yes. Because it was so large, I figured it might be better to keep them separate.
Thanks, Monica.
Was there anything on there that you wanted to really specifically point out?
I added an addition after the last town council meeting, and it would be specific to rezones. And if I find that page, I will identify that for you. It is, basically what we're doing is we're taking out, as you guys talked about at your last meeting, my regulations stipulated resolution, so I just changed that to ordinance. And I changed the verbiage a little bit. Oh, I'm close. So it's specific to that. And I don't know, I can't remember, because that happened last week, if I sent it to Jim or not. It doesn't look like this piece of paper has what I'm looking for.
Does that,
But it is specific to section, sorry, everybody. Comments, recommendation, planning, blah, 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 additional public hearing with comment. It was the second revision, and it was only that one page. Is that in here, is that?
It's not.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't have that.
No wonder I can't find it. So basically, that was the last addition that we kind of put in there, we wanted you guys to address. But if you recall correctly, we did talk about how we wanted to increase some parking. We just didn't feel that 400 square feet
Yeah.
of residential parking wasn't adequate for, it's just not adequate for what the
And snow
projects that
storage
we're
too,
seeing
right?
and doing.
Yeah.
And then what we did is we asked, and I don't know if Dominique can address this, to get the engineering calculations for additional snow storage. We all know that 2.5% of your overall 153 square feet of parking is not enough. I mean, look what we got going on now.
Yeah.
So we would like to have a specified calculation. We couldn't technically come up with the amount, whether it should be 10, 15, 5, 7. So that way we decided that that should be determined by somebody
yeah.
somebody qualified for those, yes, for those specifications.
No, that sounds great. That's
So we did ask for an increase in minimum parking from 400 square feet to 600 square feet. So those were our major things that we came up with. The one thing that I'm gonna draw you back to is section 1. We kind of did put this together quickly, I will admit that. And it dictates.
What page is it?
Which,
which
Section one.
section one? Which part of section one?
I'm getting to it.
Oh, okay.
I'm still trying to find it,
Sorry.
sorry. So it's page 2, section 1-104, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Okay, the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that keeping the board at 3 members was good. I know there's been a lot of different discussion about increasing it to a 5-person board, so that is something that you guys are gonna need to determine and look at.
Yeah, my feeling on that is, as we grow as a town, I think having more people from different areas when we grow is gonna be really important. If we were able to, grow south, maybe we have someone on the board, we split up into districts or something where we have the south
So
district.
so my suggestion would be, and I'm sure Mr. Sanderson will,
Give us 2 cents?
correct me.
Oh.
It just says here, currently, it says, 2 residents of the town of Alpine as well as 1 resident of the unincorporated area of Lincoln County. So if that's something that you would like to do, I think that verbiage just needs to be changed a
Okay.
Yeah,
little
and-
to cover,
We
to
can do
cover
it
that.
late, we can do it later too. I mean, we can, as the town grows, we can figure out,
When we had a 5-person board, it was 4 in, 1 out.
Okay.
So just as a track record.
what's the thinking behind having someone outside of the?
Somebody outside gives a different perspective of how the town grows. And as we all know, there's a lot of people that think that they're town residents, but they're not in the incorporated boundaries, so they want to be able to have that input or have that
Representation.
representation. So,
I would also like to look at adding architectural review committee,
okay?
and I don't know if we have to put that on the land use development code or what, but I think it'd be important to put.
Yeah.
Put it
Yeah, I
in
think
here.
that probably would be good, because you're talking about a whole separate board,
Oh, really?
correct? Is that what
I
you,
think, it needs to be, but I
okay?
don't know if there's any carryover or whatever, but it seems like it'd be a whole separate board.
Yeah,
So
I-
you'd have to create a board, but that's not,
yeah.
we would just have to do an ordinance to create it.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be in here, or do we have to?
I think the best place for it to go, once it is created and its rules, et cetera, should go in the land use development code, so just for organization
Sure.
purposes, so.
Yeah, because if we're creating an architectural board, it needs, in my view, it needs to be in the LUDC,
Me
because
too.
then it's all subjective. And then you've got 3 to 5 people saying, oh, I like this, well, yeah, but I like that.
Yeah.
And that'd be kind of similar of the idea of kind of one that besides lack of volunteerism, the idea of going to a 3-member board versus the 5-member board, was that we had what we had in the LUDC. So there wasn't, the thought was there's no need for a 5-person board because there's no room for opinion, so to speak. I mean, you had to go by the LUDC, and if somebody said, well, I don't like that, I understand that, but if it's in the LUDC and you're abiding by the rules by the LUDC, then whether you like it or don't like it, it doesn't really
Well,
play out.
if we kept it at 3 and we were able to add on a architectural review committee,
That's
then
where,
that might be kind of a few more people having a say in how things look and stuff. It might achieve,
yeah, but it'd have to go into the LUDC.
no, for sure, but that's what I'm saying, we just, instead of adding more people to the planning and zoning, maybe
Right.
just adding this architectural review committee might help us get some more input.
More of a design review committee,
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but,
That was one thing that was big on the questionnaire that we put out last year. There was a lot of feedback came from people saying, why don't we have
okay, good.
an architectural review committee? Or at least something in the LUDC that gives a little more standardization to give kind of more of a town identity, so to speak.
No, I agree. And just the way buildings look these days is totally changed
Yeah.
over the last however many years, and so, I don't know, I think it'd be a good thing, but, Anything else you wanted to point out, Christine?
I just think we need, if we're gonna do a design committee, we just need to make sure we do some specific guidelines for what we're looking for and how we wanna achieve our end goal,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think the initial board is probably gonna help us come up with those. That might be one of the first things they do, is help develop all that. So, do we need to, what's your intention as far as updating the ordinance on the land use development code? How soon do you wanna do it?
Well, I thought we were trying to kinda get it done so we could have a reading at the next, meeting. And then go three readings.
Okay,
I guess the question is, it gets back to, we did kind of fast track it, so we went through chapter 1, 2, and 3. 4 is the one that has the parking and the snow storage. So that was the only thing that, at that time, when we gave it to for the January submittal to you guys, those were the only items that we looked at. So,
yeah.
it probably wouldn't hurt for
We can,
you to do
we
one
could
more.
do it in a second or third reading, though. We could add in,
Oh, yeah, you could have.
yeah, yeah.
And I'll just put it out there, Christine knows, and my Hill people know. Something I've been pushing for several years is I'll be adding, language for everybody to review on, R1 zoning of the, how's that go, Christine? The, frontage-
Accessory
buildings,
structures
accessory
shall be
structures.
no closer than the front plane of the primary structure.
Oh, okay, so you don't have a building.
So
out
you
in front
don't
of the
have
house.
that detached garage just out there in the front of your primary structure.
Because as it stands, the Hill people anyway, Lakeside View, 40 to 60% are non-conforming and have been for years. And in my opinion, that's great for HOAs, and that's why there's HOAs, that towns can have different parts of that.
But just to
That's what
clarify,
it's got.
that would make no difference up there right now. It would,
It'd make no difference other than,
they'd be grandfathered in or whatever.
well, they already are.
Right,
Yeah.
Can't do that.
But where it'd make a difference is, in the last 4 years, we've had remodels or additions where they've built the garage, but technically to meet code, they had to put in a breezeway at extra cost, expense to the homeowner, which,
So use your house as an example,
well,
for
so.
your detached carport.
So my house, for example, I have 2 frontages. My address is the garage side, whereas my front door, which the code says is the front of the, well, actually, we learned that it's not where the front door is, it's the address of facing, but my front door doesn't face my address. My front door is more on the other side.
It's on Pinecrest.
On Pinecrest. So by putting in the accessory buildings, where I actually have room, it would be more like a backyard. Now I'd have to change my address from the Sunset side to the Pinecrest side. That's one example, but like I say, really, I mean, and that's just the pain in the, you-know-what. But where we've had people add additions, in order for them to work in their own private property, they've had to build a breezeway to make it legal. So you can still do a garage, accessory garage, but in order to keep it with code, you now have to build this breezeway that connects the garage to the house to make it code. And we've had a half dozen of those, yeah. And
I wouldn't say a whole bunch, but
No,
we've
no,
had,
but
we've
enough.
had some where it has been, a
point of contention.
big discussion.
All right.
Point of contention.
Well,
Okay,
that's,
you can say
that
that.
sounds good to me. Anything we can clarify, just to take the question out of it. Seems like a good thing to do, so.
And then
It's just
another thing is just, the regulations stipulate if you're a corner lot, both of those street frontages have that 25-foot setback, and so the other 2 are sides, so there's people out there that don't like that, but that's what the regulations stipulate.
Right.
That's what we've gone by.
I understand. Any questions for Christine?
So it's riveting reading.
Yeah.
Please, please.
I've been through
see
most
how
of
it
it.
ends.
Please see the red highlighted items. So,
All right, well, it sounds like we just need to get, I have no problem getting it on the next meeting
Yeah.
and starting that process.
Okay.
But we have 3 readings and we'll have to tinker with it a little bit, but all of your suggestions seem fine to me. so.
okay,
All right, thanks, Christine. You got off easy.
I did.
Okay, so next we're gonna jump over to Alpine Flats and Drew Hale, and then I'm gonna have Bob Ablandi come up and sit in Christine's seat, just so, just so we have easy, just in case we have to ask him a quick question or whatever. Yeah,
I'm live.
seems like you're good to go there.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry to get you up there, but first of all, I wanted to have Monica read the kind of timeline of events,
Okay.
and just to get it into the record. Have we shared this with you yet?
So, first off, thank you guys for having us on the agenda tonight, Mayor, Council. I gave her, so she requested a timeline from me, and I gave her a very, high level. It wasn't,
Okay.
Yeah, and when I got his, I had let him know that I had already done.
Yes. And so I saw, she emailed me that she went through the minutes
Okay.
and everything and was going to forward that, but I was like, well, I assume there's another document. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
So,
Well, she's gonna read it just to put it into the record.
Thank you. So just so everybody understands the process, and frankly, until I went back, with me being new and Eric being new, and we have Emily new, and not having been involved in this process, I kind of wanted to see where it all started. I was surprised to find out that it started at the July 21st, 2020 meeting. So at that meeting, there was an update given to the town council on the new development, which was the Alpine Flats development. And so I did provide to the town council the minutes and all the information that was submitted about that to the town council. I gave them the packet information again as well. And then on 8/18, so August 18th, 2020, there was again an update on the new development with approval of a master plan. And so is how it was listed in the minutes. And so I did supply to them the minutes and the info from the packet again. And then on 9/15/2020, there was an update on the new development with approval of a master plan. So I provided them, again, the minutes and info from the packet. So the master plan, I wanted to note, though, that the master plan approval was completed with the understanding that at that point that it was a project that would be built in the county, not in the town incorporated boundaries of Alpine. So the next time it showed up in the record was on 12/15/2020. And so that was listed as Alpine Flats update on sewer extension and easement. So I did provide that, again, the minutes and the info from the packet. And so then again, it showed up on 2/16/2021. It was called the Alpine Flats update. And I supplied the minutes and the info from the packet. So this was the first discussion in the minutes about annexation of the development into the town of Alpine. There also was a map that was attached to the documentation, and it showed the current alignment of the sewer. And then we have on 3/16/2021, Alpine Flats annexation. So resolution was set 475 resolution number 0316/2021 was supplied to the council in preparation for tonight, as well as the minutes and the info from the packet. I did want to also note that the annexation resolution states that the town will not pay for the infrastructure. And then there was it was mentioned again on 4/20/2021, public hearing meeting and town council meeting. So I've provided the minutes to the town council for both of them. And it was noted that Mr. Cottam had discussed in the public comments that they wanted recapture from connecting landowners for the infrastructure. So then we have 5/18/2021. So, and I'm sorry, I did miss it. I updated it later and it didn't make it into the packet. That also was the first reading of the ordinance for the annexation on 4/20. I missed it in my notes. 5/18/2021, the annexation ordinance was adopted on the second reading. I provided the minutes to town council. 6/15/2021, the annexation ordinance was adopted on the third reading. I've provided those minutes to the town council. And then on 5/17/2022, there was an update for Alpine Flats. And so that was the first time in the meeting minutes that it mentioned a developer's agreement. And that it seemed from the language in the minutes that the development agreement was handed at the meeting to Mr. Sanderson. There was nothing in the documentation from that meeting of that original agreement, so I don't have a copy of whatever was handed to Mr. Sanderson that night. And I also provided you guys with the minutes. So then, of course, there's been a lot of conversation since then. I think we're all pretty familiar with what's happened after that point. We're all pretty familiar with the developer agreement conversations that have happened more recently. So,
Okay. Thanks, Monica.
you're welcome.
Does that timeline gel pretty well with
Yeah,
yours?
yeah.
Okay.
I honestly, as you can see, this is a long, actually,
Yeah.
I want to touch on something that Christine said.
Yep.
That's kind of related. I would also encourage you guys, if you're going to have like a design review or whatever committee, to really be careful how that's worded. We actually started, so our first meeting was in May of 20 here, I believe you said.
The first meeting that you guys were at was 7/21/2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually started our conceptual design with and engaged our architects like in January of 2020.
Right.
So from a developer's perspective, they can, if there's not, it can be very hard to start because some of these things start before the town's ever even approached, just the designing and planning of stuff. So if the town wants to be involved in that, it probably should be a pretty clear and obvious thing. So there's not a bunch of time put
And
into
early in the
designing something
process,
that's,
too.
a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah.
time that's going to be
That may
put
be
into
one of the
designing
first
something that you're
interactions
like,
you have.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, oh, well, this is a great building, but it doesn't work here. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, some pretty objective guidelines would
Yeah.
probably.
Well, I'm sorry you don't have the rest of your team here with you tonight.
Oh, that's
It
okay.
sounds like they're traveling, but I really appreciate you coming and just wanted to have you here and go over kind of, I think we know a lot of the history. We saw your report that you sent the other day. And really, we just want to have an opportunity for everyone up here to ask you questions.
Sure.
And kind of make sure we clear the air so we can make a definitive, make a decisive decision here real soon.
Yep.
So. But I don't know, go ahead and tell us what you want to, I know you laid out this memo the other day, but do you want to just kind of summarize what your
Yeah,
feelings are?
absolutely. So, at the last meeting, we've talked a lot about the things that have happened. That's, we all know what the conversations that were had, implications that were, either incorrectly received or whatever. But I think it was Jeremy that brought up, let's get something more objective here, numbers. And so, I don't know what costs are associated with every connection that comes into the line, with the sewer line, but I know that connections are needed. There's a big old waste treatment plant there and designed for the town to grow. And I think Bob has, early on talked about how it was the desire to grow as far north as the town can. Idaho's there. So, and that was kind of part of the whole big picture. And it sounds like the town's trying to grow south as well. So I just, with the information that I have, based from the town on budgets and, charges and fees and things like that, I just used some simple net present value calculations. I hope I explained, I do a lot of these just in what I do. I'm a degreed accountant. I hold a master's of accountancy from New Mexico State University. So sometimes I get a little off in the weeds and people are like, I don't know what this means. So, but I tried to address the numbers from about 3 different perspectives on the benefits of the town. Cause that is what was asked of me was, how does this benefit the town? So, and then I did some kind of just more subjective, unquantifiable things that I don't know where this goes in the future. So, yeah.
Have you calculated the potential recapture for you guys over the next 5 years?
So the issue with the recapture is, okay, here's a good example. There's a gentleman, his name escapes me. It's the Advanced Concrete Solutions. I think you know him. Yeah. And he asked, and I'll just say, we've done this. Our engineers take the lead on this. We don't, we're not just throwing stuff in the ground and whatever happens, happens. So we had lots and lots of plan review with the DEQ and with, at the time, Mr. Blondie, our engineers and anyone else you can think of that in designing these things. And we had a gentleman come, he's like, hey, can I just slide a line right, just throw a saddle on that line because I'd like, you're going right by my property. I was like, that's all well and good, but, we don't, that requires a design change. It's not that simple. I mean, maybe, in the 70s it was when people just threw stuff in the ground, but it's just not that simple these days. So, and without a development agreement or knowing who's going to own the line, because I assume you guys want some control over who's tapping into the line, and you need to know who's flowing into that line. Yep. So you can collect fees and things like that. Yep. On it. But the problem is so is he a developer? Because that's one guy who wants to tap into the line. At where he's tapping in, it could be $150,000 for him in recapture based on my understanding of that thing, which is completely unreasonable. So if there's one giant developer who's trying to intercept our line 50% of the way down, that's one thing. But, one landowner here, one landowner there with one lot, with one tap in there, I just don't see how that gives anyone incentive to tap into the town and get more hooks into your sewer system. So.
But recapture also works, correct me if I'm wrong, for people past your line, correct?
Yes.
Isn't there potential of, so someone's going to, you've brought it thus far, and
Yeah.
if someone wants to extend it out, you get recapture past you.
I believe so, yeah.
Right.
So
it's set up how I was thinking.
yeah.
But you haven't calculated the potential recapture.
I don't know who's going to tap into the line. So I just went off of who I know can tap into it right now and what the financial benefit to the town is for those service connections in perpetuity. Because as soon, septic tanks are a pain in the butt. So I think if someone has the option to abandon that, or if they're having problems with it and it's going to cost less to just tap into the line and pay the $9,000 fee to the town than paying $50,000 for a new septic tank, they're going to do that.
Right.
So, but to answer your question, no, I don't know, because I have no idea how many more properties are eligible to tap into. And we had some disagreement anyway on, 5 years goes by like that. And We've been working on this for 2 years and we don't even have framing up yet. So,
Understandable.
yeah, so that's neither here nor there. That is the ordinance and I understand that, so.
Does anybody have any questions for Drew? Either based on the memo he sent the other day or just anything else in general? So the reason why you're here is want your project
Yeah,
in the town. We're happy that you're doing what you're doing. We just want to, the way I look at it, we're setting a precedent whenever we figure out, not tonight, but at the next town council meeting, that we have to basically be comfortable with, because it doesn't affect
That's how
just
it's gonna
this,
go.
it affects every other project that's gonna happen in the foreseeable future. So I'm keeping that in mind when I'm trying to figure out, the decision. I hope everyone else up here is as well. So, does anyone have any questions for Drew?
Still kind of reviewing your numbers.
that's fine, go for it.
Everything.
And like I said, I mean, everything's based off of the service charges, so I realize there are costs associated with operating the sewer line, but I know a lot of those are fixed, so the more connections, the better for you. I mean, it's not like every $54 a month fee that you collect costs you $54 to maintain, so, and, I mean, again, I guess it's just how you look at it, just with regard to this, we don't have any interest in having that line for the rest of time. It's, it's a means to service that project and other things along the way, but it's not ours. It runs across public easements through people's land. It belongs to the town, and you guys can use it to incentivize whoever you want to tap in, because I know that's the ultimate goal, is to grow the town. Because you don't want to patchwork. Right now you've got the Lazy Bee subdivision between us and the town limits, and I'm sure eventually you would like to have all of that part of town. I don't know how long that's going to take, but if you can say, hey, look, we can give all you guys sewer, so you don't have to deal with septic systems. Maybe that's incentive. I don't know.
No, it's a huge.
And that's for you guys to decide.
Yeah, it's a huge incentive, so.
And, I think there was some stuff, and Bob might be able to help out, that spur going off of Manhole 4 to the east. I don't know what that's for, but it's an 8-inch line, which can feed a lot of stuff, because all our stuff inside our property is 8-inch as well, so.
How many people are actually, have tapped into the current line?
There shouldn't be any. We built it, but it's not, we built it and it was approved in August or September, I think. And we just been waiting, we don't, as long as we own it, there's not enough flow going into it right now that we're comfortable maintaining it until we get a couple of our buildings on the line.
Right.
So, it's just been kind of lying in wait.
Okay,
So-
so as far as you know, nobody's tapped into it.
No, that's
Okay.
my knowledge. We do have agreements with 2 of the landowners, that we would pay a tap fee in exchange for easements to their property. But that's it. So I believe that's lot, I can't remember. It's Bassett and Shockey,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay, and so can you explain isn't it like 5 stubs coming off of it?
Yes.
And you were directed or asked
Yeah, so.
basically to put those in.
Yeah, so that line, I don't know if anyone here saw what they had to do to get that in, but it is very deep, especially going through the Lazy Bee, the way the topography goes. It's climbing at a faster rate than the line is. Obviously it's gravity, so it's flowing down. And in that area, it's like, I think it was close to 17 feet deep. And I mean, everyone knows what the ground conditions are like here in Alpine, so. What they wanted to do was to get stubs to lines that would potentially tap into those, in that Lazy Bee subdivision out to the edge of the easement. So I think we put 4-inch service connections, 20 feet out or whatever, to the edge of the easement. It wasn't intended, it's like, this is a stub, they're gonna cap it, pressure test it and everything like that. And originally, I think they were talking about doing 8 stubs, but ultimately, I think we only did estimated 5, because I don't know what the other 3 were gonna be for. It was so long ago, you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember the details.
And do you know how much that cost you to put those 4 or 5 stubs in, whatever?
We've got it on our, I think they charged, I mean, it was a nominal amount, you know, it was less than $5,000, I think they charged for that extra. I've got it detailed on the invoice. I did not put all the supporting documentation for the
Sure.
invoices, I just gave a summary of costs, so.
And were those directly related to the 5 manhole covers? Or is that separate?
No.
No, they're separate. They're on the main line.
Oh, okay, those are on the main line, okay.
The manholes are just because you know, you have to have a manhole every so often on
Sure.
the line. So, and anywhere there's a turn, obviously, and then I think it's no more than 400 feet, yeah.
Didn't they put a stub off one of the manholes?
Yes.
They did,
Yes.
manhole 4,
It's about
yeah.
here, yeah.
That's an 8-inch stub going to the west.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually had to modify that manhole because it was a change order after they had already fabricated the manholes, and it was not gonna be simple to. At the time, it was hard enough to get material, so we had to source our pipe from 5 different places. Unfortunately, it all ended up getting ripped out of the ground, but, so.
So I guess, in summary, why don't you just tell us exactly what you're looking for from the town?
So what we're looking for is some sort of vehicle or avenue to transfer the ownership of that line to the town for you to use however you want. You know, I don't really care about recapture on that line. I mean, I do, but I don't think that it's a likely thing to happen in the short 5-year period. I don't see people, I see people, you know, the people in the Lazy Bee, they're like, well, I'll just wait, I'll throw a septic tank in and wait 5 years and then tap
They're
in
the
for
town,
free.
aren't they? They're already-
Lazy Bee? No,
It's not?
no.
Just shocking.
Oh, okay.
Easy.
Yeah, I believe most of those properties are either vacant or on septic systems. Is it for the Riverview townhomes that are,
That's correct.
that's what that 8-inch stub was for?
That's
Okay. Yeah, because those are townhouses, I assume, on a septic system
They
right
are.
now, which is not ideal. Which, I mean, again, that's the whole point of why we wanted to get, I mean, we're not gonna do 160 apartments on 10 different septic tanks, that'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So.
Crazy.
And, you know, I kind of, and I realized, you know, ordinances change, but on Exhibit B there, I summarized, I mean, these are just the real numbers that we're looking at from where we started, when we first started doing this versus where we're at right now. And, you know, it's gonna be more than double in cost with all the tap fees and everything like that. It's a substantial cost to the development. So, and I get that the town needs to, you know, they've got costs and everything like that associated. You need revenue to pay all the bills that it costs to operate a town and provide all the services. I get that, but if we can come to some sort of agreement just to offset or whatever, you know, I'm tired of arguing what term we're using, but get figured out how that chunk of the line, and then we're also wanting to put the rest of the water lines on our property into the town as well. And that's, I think the town desires that, at least they did at the time. So, because you want to be in control, you know, being able to inspect those and everything like that. And that's already set up. It's ready to go.
Okay.
So we've got all the easements written. They're just sitting there waiting for an agreement. So, but you're right. You do need a vehicle, because this is a lot different than, you know, somebody has a house and they're just stubbing 30 feet out into the street with a 4-inch line and intercepting that line that's running to the street.
Yep.
This is a very, very different thing, but I feel like it's being treated, it's like, well, that's at your cost, you know, well, yeah, but that's, you
Right.
know, very, very little relative to what we had to do to get it there, so. And-
So basically, I'm new to this game, of course.
Yep.
But from the short time I've been around, in discussions with other developers, that they're, for example, if they want to tie into our sewer system, they're putting the pipe into the ground. They're happy to do it because they know they're gonna be hooked up to sewer and water, and that's the only way that they can do their development and get the density on there, and they're happy to do it. And so that's kind of what is making me think through this whole process that, you know, you guys put in the line, and then basically you give it to us, and then you're able to service your project, you know, forever. And that's kind of the way it seems to be, you know, going forward. That's what's going to be happening. So that's kind of the position that I've taken or seen. So, you know, obviously you disagree with that, but.
Yeah, well, and I mean, again, this is based off of just the last 2 years. There's a whole lot of, you know, had we known that from the beginning, it was explicit that this is how it works, fine, we accept that and let's go and let's get it done. But again, this is kind of bigger than that line. You gotta have a development agreement for these larger developments that are coming in on how you can entice properties to come into the town. I think there's some other larger properties that are looking to annex into the town, and they're gonna look real hard at why they should do it, you know? I know that you pay a little more for water and sewer. The town will still provide it, I think, kinda is the base assumption. If you can get will serve letters and things like that, and I think that you want as many hooks as possible, but yeah, I don't know, you know. You guys got to think real hard about how these kind of more nuanced things, because this isn't going to be specific to all developers. Some landowner might be, it's like, well, it does go right by my property, so I can just tap in. This was a much more substantial cost, and you know, I don't know all the other developments in town and what they had to do to get their line to your line, but I think that this is pretty atypical. So.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Drew?
And if you do disagree with my calculations, let me know.
Yeah. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward.
I was asked to do that, so I did it. And
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It seems pretty straightforward. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the process, everything. I'm kind of the same mindset as Mayor Green. You have a development, you figure out your costs. Unfortunately, communication was muddled, it sounds like, in between that. So that's where I'm at, kind of like, okay, I want to help you to the best of my ability to make up for those miscommunications, but also at the same time, I too believe in precedent.
Yep.
And so that's where I kind of like.
So how do we do it?
That's where I'm kind of like, okay, what, how the, what the, where the, how the. And so, because I want it to be a successful project for you guys, as well as for the town. Yeah, that's.
Drew, have you ever considered, I know another kind of point of contention you have is regarding the fees going up in the middle of this project.
Yes.
And just to clarify, you guys were given the option to pay all the fees for the entire project.
I mean, yes and no. Building all those 10 buildings is not even remote in 1 year or 2 years or however long you have to do it is not even remotely in our model or capabilities to get done. So I mean, you know, it's a pretty pretty tall order.
You could prepay are you under a certain restriction to get them done?
You have to open the building permit to pay the fees to be logged in.
Okay.
And once the building permit's open, you're on that time. That's my understanding. Yes. Okay. And that's why it was.
All right, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we opened that second one, because we were really, well, and unfortunately the weather got a little ahead of us this
Yep.
year. So as soon as concrete loosened up, the weather decided to roll in. So,
Yeah.
but, yeah, that was, you know, and so that was never presented as an option to us. And we kind of were made aware of that right when we were getting that second building permit, like, hey, there's this ordinance, by the way. We were focused on other things and missed that, but.
Have you ever considered deed restricting any of the units?
We haven't. Is that something you guys would?
I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think having a percentage of the buildings or units being deed restricted to kind of protect against future inflation or whatever would, I think would, at least I would look positively on that. So maybe there's something that we can do there, but, does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I
Jim?
guess my question is, aren't these apartments?
They are.
They're not condominiums.
Yeah.
No, so, but can't you, restrict how much it can actually, the rent can't go up a certain amount, over a certain amount?
I guess you could do that. Rent control, basically, is the
Right.
name for it, yeah.
Just throwing out an idea, but if there was an option to restrict rent control or whatever we wanna call it on some of the units, and then giving a, discount on fees for those particular units might be something that we'd be interested in, but I'd like to discuss it with everyone.
Okay.
Where do you see the development as far as luxury apartments, mid-level apartments?
I'll say,
Where's
I'll
your-
say mid to luxury. I mean, they are still apartments, and we're in the business of rentals, but we are actually, and I've got some photos. We're actually finishing up a small building over in Lander right now, and we're actually getting our COs going right now. Or should be done by the end of the month, so we can start focusing on this. My thought, we still want apartments to be efficient, but these ones are actually pretty large. I don't know if you guys, it's been a while since
Kind
I've
of
cracked
remember the
yeah, they're
layout?
yeah, we wanted to do something geared towards people living there for a longer period of time, not feel like they're living in a sardine can for, whatever amount of money it costs to live in, $500 or 500 square foot apartments for $3,000 a month, and you can barely fit a queen size bed in there.
What are do you have any idea what the rent would be on any of these, or ballpark?
I don't, it's gonna be market based, so, yeah.
Man, right now, the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is, and that's our model,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, from what I recollect from your guys' plans is, to me, it was kind of for a better sense, it was a family-friendly apartment.
Yeah,
It wasn't high-end. I don't remember any penthouses. I don't.
No,
recall that.
they're all the same, it's 50% one bedrooms, 50% two bedrooms.
Yeah.
We made the footprint larger than what you would see around here, so people can stand living there, and actually, so our two bedrooms are actually a 2-bedroom, 2.5 baths, so there's actually a little half bath and everything like that, and then the each bedroom has its own private suite. So I mean, there's a lot of people around here. If you have a couples or whatever living in an apartment, sharing rents or whatever, we're not trying to cram them out. We're going to follow all the rules and everything. I don't like when there's 50 people living in an apartment. We're not going to do that. But we want to make them comfortable as a kind of alternative, because right now it's virtually impossible to buy a house here for an average income person. So, and our model is, renting apartments at market rents, and that's worked for us for decades. So that's kind of how we do it. But they will have nice finishes, comfortable, somewhere you can feel like you can have people over and entertain and whatnot, stuff like that. But, yeah, but no, not like ultra luxury, with extremely high tech everything in there. But nice finishes.
Kind of like Meadowbrook. It was Meadowbrook before it was Ghettobrook.
Yeah, and I'm happy to send you guys some pictures of the apartments we just finished, so you can kind of see what our finishes look like. So,
Yeah.
granite countertops and things like that.
So my one question, just as I was reading, so when you all built out, you're gonna have 98 units total,
160,
160 units total.
and it's a phased project.
Right, I understand.
So there's 10 16-plex buildings. They're very large buildings.
Yeah.
How often do you think they're gonna come online?
I'd like to see 2 a year. So assuming things can, the first 2, but if things are going well, we're gonna ramp it up. But, you know, we're pretty conservative in our approach. We don't like to, and again, you know, we're not, it's not in our model to go dump 10 buildings in there and see what happens. It's just too high risk. So, cause it's still business at the end of the day.
Yep.
So, but assuming, you know, supply chain flows like it should, we're basically framing up in the summertime and finishing out in the wintertime, getting those online, just moving forward. That was the plan last summer. We got skidded to a halt with the concrete, so
I
unfortunately.
can't remember, do you have any renters agreements with businesses either in this valley or Jackson?
Not
for
currently.
Employee-type housing?
Not currently, but
Is that part of the business
people have-
plan, if that's a possibility?
people have reached out to us,
I'm sure.
but it's early
No
to make,
doubt.
it's early to make those commitments.
Yeah.
So, and again, we don't know, you know, I mean, we have a rough idea of the cost and obviously we have a budget, but it's so volatile right now, a lot of the things. So steel, plumbing products, electrical, we're having to order our electric packages a year in advance just to ensure that we'll get them. So we already have the electric on order for our second building. It'll get here hopefully late summer. Or maybe it'll show up tomorrow. Nobody knows. The suppliers don't know. They won't tell you. So
All right,
But-
any other questions?
that's our problem, and I'm not trying to whine. So
Any other questions for Drew, anybody?
Just have some
I know, Shay
comments.
wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just had a
Go ahead.
couple comments. No, I think, and I appreciate the numbers because it took me a while to get through them and now I think I've deciphered them. I think the only part of your detailed argument, for lack of a better word, would be affordability. That's obviously a very objective word. We are talking about nicer apartments and I appreciate their larger footprint. But just coming off of what I know people are making per hour, and I know that you had stated this is supposed to help with the extreme shortage to add extra housing. People, I'll tell you right off the bat, probably can't afford to live there unless they're making money remotely or they're traveling to Jackson to make that money. And our ultimate goal, of course, is to have small businesses here that can sustain housing here. So I have to
Yeah.
just say, I think you put together a great packet. That's really the only part that I didn't agree with because we're looking at Targhee Place, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but you're starting at affordable is $1,839.
yeah,
That's not affordable in my book. I would worry, and I know we're already moving forward with this project, this is just my opinion. I would worry that we would be relying on workers who are making $25, $30 an hour plus. I mean, Wendy's starts at, I think, $25 an hour. Target starts at $20 an
Yeah.
hour up in Jackson. So that wouldn't really help us with the residents that we have here, the everyday workers who are still trying to have a little money left over so they don't have to buy top ramen.
yeah. No, I understand.
But that aside, I do think this is actually a unique situation because we saw ordinance 296, they had their third reading on August 2022, and that significantly increased your fees. So I think that if we were gonna look at some type of compromise, again, just my opinion, I'd love to get everybody's opinion on it. But instead of looking at this lump sum of $250,000 to fund the line, which would end up putting a burden on town residents, not even to mention Mr. Sanderson's point, which was, yes, you're looking at a 30-year life, but we as the town would shoulder the cost if there was any breakdown
maintain.
before that, or to replace it, especially if 160 units, how many people are coming into each unit? I mean, let's be realistic. If you look at any other area, it's not just 1 or 2 people with their dog. You're maximizing that so you can afford to live there. But instead, I would look at the fees, and that was also Mr. Sanderson's opinion, is that we go ahead and what if we gave a certain percentage of the buildings to the old 2022 fee and left a certain percentage to 2023? Or even more kind, did every building and honored that 2022 pricing prior to the ordinance passing where everything increased? Because you're going from 59 847, yeah, to 104,000. So you're basically, if you did 5 buildings at that old 2022 rate, you're looking at that'd be $221,825 savings. That would also help offset that $250,000 that you're looking to get back and help you with working capital moving forward. So would that be something that you would entertain?
Yeah, we're open to that. I mean, I think that was actually discussed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No,
Okay.
no, it's
Never mind
okay.
then.
You know, we wanted to negotiate this. I'm happy to hear that because this is the negotiation we've been looking for.
Right.
We haven't heard any counters like, hey, we can't do that, but how about this? So, no, I think this is good and productive. So, and that would probably help you, again, for future developments. And early on, it's like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're going to do. Let's lock this in.
Right.
Without having to open up 10 permits that you can't possibly deliver on in the given time period or however many. So, because it's one thing building a house versus building a building versus building 10 buildings. It's all going to be very different, and this is going to happen over and over and over again as the town grows. And I see the town growing. I know it's going to happen, and you guys do too. So, but yeah, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. And like I said, we're market-based apartments. It's our business model, and so but you got to have. I know you guys want businesses in Alpine for Alpine to grow and Alpine to have its own identity, and I completely agree with that. But there's 5 houses on the market, all into 7 figures right now. I mean, just like kind of keep an eye on Zillow. It's a problem. So
Yep.
it's a serious problem. So, so while I don't know what that, I know that having something that you can rent and be comfortable in helps. I know rent is expensive. I understand that. I see it, and I'm not going to ignore that. But with the alternative as a $10,000 a month mortgage or whatever, it's tough. So it's real tough. And with the hospital, you're going to have a bunch of nurses going through there, and I know they're trying to get the emergency room and the OR online. I think that's probably going to be a few years out. But these companies that are not going to come in, the medical companies or whatever, if they can't house them, their employees, it's very, very tough. So,
Yep.
and in
I
this
think you're
market,
positioned well to be successful with this development. It's the way you're doing it, so I applaud you for that for sure. Any other questions for Drew? I wanted to get some more comments from Bob and Jim and anybody else that wanted to say anything, but any other questions for Drew? We might bring you back up here in a minute. But
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I will sit down.
Thanks. Yeah. Shay, you wanted to say something real quick, and then I was going to get it. Do you mind going up to the?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the record, Shay Scafidi.
Gosh. No, I think I just kind of wanted, obviously I sit here a lot at meetings, and so gathering data and just kind of figuring it out. I'm kind of under the same ideology that we're trying to create this new precedent, but the past administration had a wholly different precedent. And so I feel like poor Drew, his feet are like held to this fire that's never been held to before. So it's kind of been disheartening to listen to a developer who's trying to bring housing to us, and we want to like double fees and do this, and we required this, plumbing going in. So I feel like in the same ideology that maybe Emily brought up, could there be a way to work with fees to let them recapture back to a budget they created in 2022 that then got pulled out from under them? And I think I already have objected to how high we raised the fees. I felt like to go up almost 50% in one fell swoop was pretty brutal. A developer aside, if I'm a homeowner, to know I went from 5,000 to 9,000. I don't know what the water tap went up to. I apologize. I know they tightened it a little bit. But again, I want a balance. Of course, I support this town more than anything. But I feel like we kind of are changing the rules. And I just feel like let's be consistent Did we deed restrict other developers? Did we give credits to other developers? I think we've learned our lesson from those, and I think we have to kind of turn over a new leaf in this respect, but I think we need to find a happy medium, and I think they've been so patient. Yeah, like a decision just needs to be made so that, he gets to keep building and you guys get tap fees and, everybody kind of ends up being a winner in this. So that's just my perspective.
Thanks, Shay.
Thanks, Shay.
So I can speak to the percentages.
Yes.
The fees went up. Building permit fees increased by 73%. Water fees increased by 43%, and sewer fees increased by 80%. So,
Christine, do you have information on the building permit fee, why it went up that percentage, or how did we get to those numbers? Do you have any idea? Yes, please. Because we
want to hear you.
We want the public to hear directly from you.
Also the August reading,
I bet.
right? Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's a lot.
I believe that the permit fees, building permit fees were increased due to the fact that inspections weren't being covered. It was a flat fee, and there were numerous inspections on the inspection schedule, and so they went ahead and wanted to make sure that all those fees were covered.
So basically, it was to cover our inspectors
Our
going out and-
our required inspections for our inspectors to get out there and do inspections. And of course, if you don't pass an inspection, then you get a re-inspection, but then we go ahead and there's a mechanism in there for charging re-inspections. We also felt that across the board, they weren't covered. So a remodel is different than an addition. So you're adding on, on a remodel, you're doing minor stuff. It was the same price as it was an addition. So an addition is a whole new footer, everything that is entailed in that. And so we kind of talked about that. We kind of felt that that permit fee needed to be increased. $150 for a minor construction permit, we felt was pretty cheap. And so we proposed an increase on that.
And I can definitely speak on it because I was there. Not only that, but 10 years ago, during the height of the recession, we cut fees by 65, 70%.
At least.
To try,
Like you brought it more in line
to
with
try
what it
it,
was before.
exactly,
So what
to
they-
try and encourage growth during the recession time. And as things started to ramp up, costs started to go throughout the roof, then we need to rebalance that, and then that's where fees ramp. So yes, 73% is a lot, but there was a reason why Alpine was booming versus other places in the valley.
And they cut the fees back to $50 for anything. Drew, that's when you should have been. But, so for a house, for a anything you came in, it was a $50 building permit fee.
Yeah,
And so clearly the town,
right.
subsidized. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, so.
Well, I
is
think
that-
like water and sewer has been, obviously, the sewer department, we just didn't have the money. So we need to bring that more in line. I mean, we were broke. So that, they did a great thing by bringing those fees back up.
But when you're sitting at that planning and zoning table, that is a source of contention because, they're like, So I know, as you know, planning and zoning doesn't set the fees. You guys.
I know, right.
You guys set the fees.
Right.
We just get to talk to them.
Thanks.
We thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, let's talk to you. We brought you down here to talk. So you have a lot of history. You know the history on this whole development and everything.
Yes.
We've already talked about, the rerouting
Right.
and all that stuff. And I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but it seems like it's about the same lineal feet of pipe whether you go north and over, or,
If you
Go
don't,
ahead.
let me grab the map.
Yeah.
and then bring it so it's closer to the
Can you see?
microphone.
Sure.
So this is probably a map you've seen before. And this yellow is the routing that we've been talking about, the $250 per foot sewer line, very expensive sewer line. I mean, you know, that's just way over the top. And one of the reasons, of course, it's so deep, it's a 10-inch line laid at a very flat grade. And this whole, I mean, the other option was to come due north and then over. So the distances were the same. Obviously, with a deep line, when you're dealing with other nearby utilities and everything, that's another cost.
Right.
They incurred for sure. But it had to be deep in order to serve this by gravity. We really did not want another lift station. The town has 10 already. And they'll probably have more as time goes on. It's flat, you know, that's just the nature of what you're dealing with. And we didn't want them tying into this smaller line that was coming from Tardy Landing, or the one on the other side of the road that didn't make sense. So this gravity deep line was really the only way to service this property. And, you know, their low point is right up here in the very northwest corner. So in order to make that work, they had to run it at a very flat grade. By the way, the line ultimately passed everything. It's built to DEQ standards. There's nothing wrong with a line like this. I know there was some discussion about the line not working. That's false. It works. It's laid at a grade of 0.3%. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit here. But we lay a lot of lines at 0.4, 0.5%. That's what's allowed with a 10-inch line. And like I say, it passed all the tests. You know, the contractor did have troubles, but, you know, we made them go through, you know, additional testing as a result of that. And they did. They made it work. They persevered. That was part of the reason why it was as expensive as it was. But it is. It's a very deep line. That was one of the reasons why it was recommended to put the stubs in ahead of time, because to go back and dig it all up and access it would be very disruptive, more costly, potentially break things, you know, just because once you have the trench open, it's a lot easier. So there were the stubs for, I think this one is called the river, the Moosewood, I think it's called, the Moose condos or whatever. And they actually have leach fields right nearby the line, so it made sense that, okay, these two stubs can tie right into that line in the future, and it would make good sense. There were interests, so I just want to point out one thing. The blue lots circled in blue are unique in the subdivision because they're allowed to do multi-family units. The lots that are circled here in pink are actually commercial lots. So that was another reason to bring the line further in this direction so that you can access what would potentially be multi-unit lots.
Right.
The rest of the lots in the subdivision are only single family, so that was one of the incentives to do that. Turns out that one of the lots here is a single family, but the other three have multiple units on it, so it made sense to have the line there as opposed to going this direction. Also, there is a water line here that services the refuge that would have had, you know, be side by side, had to have additional easement. There were some concerns about whether, you know, they'd get easements there or not. There was an interested, you know, Robert Shockey owns that property. He was interested, so he provided the easement. So that was another incentive why it went that way. Also, there has been inquiries from the people in some of these commercial lots that they wanted to type in.
Right.
And so that's why that's 8-inch stub was put there, so that ultimately they can do that. And again, we didn't have any commitments from them. They just expressed interest, but it made sense.
It's good planning.
To do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked to Drew about the town paying for that, because it's much cheaper up front to do that, and then when those taps happen, they pay the town back. And, you know, that was what the discussion was, to do that. And You know, so I think that was one of the thoughts. We were talking about, you know, the change in sewer fees. I remember, you know, back in 2011, when I was first started working, that the fees were up to $8,600.
For sewer?
For sewer,
Mhm.
tap fees. As Jeremy was pointing out, you know, they dropped them significantly because there wasn't much going on. And then if you were in Alpine Meadows, you paid an additional fee to North Star Utility, because they were not part of the town at the time. So you would be paying close to $10,000 in tap fee. And so that is some history that I think is important, because, you know, that, you know, was certainly an impediment for any kind of development to happen at that time. You know, during the course of many years, town ended up buying North Star Utility. They lowered the rates. The other thing they did, which is significant because it would affect Drew, is it used to be every unit was considered an ERU. So he would be paying for 160 ERUs. That changed to per bedroom. You know, that was one of the things we felt it was fair, because obviously why should a 3-bedroom pay the same as a 1-bedroom? So that was a change that's actually beneficial, and that's been carried forward. You know, I think they waited too long to raise fees. You know, I think that that's the way it goes. You know, and it always hurts when it's a big jump like that. But you know, there was some history when the original plant. You know, the town still owes about $2.4 million on the plant and the wastewater. The original payback was through tap fees, which was in 2011 not a good idea, because there's no tap fees happening.
Right.
So the town went down to Cheyenne and, you know, got that debt restructured ultimately, because all of a sudden they were going to be up against the wall and not being able to pay off those fees, because that's how, you know, why they let them even do that makes no sense, because I think that's kind of a foolish thing to count on tap fees that you're not sure it's going to happen. So that was a fairly, you know, important part of it too. But no, I think, you know, that definitely was an expensive line, but there really was, you know, the only way to get, you know, gravity sewer. I think that's important to service this number of units, 160 units, rather than having another lift station to deal with. A lift station costs you $150,000 anyway, probably more by the time you put in standby power and everything else. So there's a lot of cost there just for the lift station itself, not for all the pipes and everything to connect to it. And I think that's, you know, a consideration. One thing, you know, that I've worked with developments in a lot of different places, and these recapture agreements are tricky. Mary McSorley, who has Target Landing, has a 20-year recapture. It's still going on. That's pretty long. 5 years, in my mind, that's pretty short. And I understand that's what your decision was. But, you know, one option that might help out here is maybe that recapture time can be a little bit longer, because there are going to be people who will benefit from it. And they shouldn't just tap on, you know, with free Scott, you know, like you say, wait out for 5 years and then tap on. You know,
Can you give us specific examples of potential recapture locations?
Yeah, I think that all of these
The
lots
commercial,
have
yeah.
potential, as do these 2 lots here. I mean, they're not big numbers. And then, you know, I don't know, that, you know, there are these condos for the air park. They were offered to hook up to sewer, but they decided not to. They're all using enhanced leach fields there, which I think is kind of, those things are not cheap, and they're getting more expensive, and that's really, you know, crazy. I think a lot of these are smaller, and, you know, they might have a bathroom in them, so they're not, you know, big users. But, you know, there is some potential there. I've always thought it was kind of crazy, you know, seeing the kind of homes that are being built in refuge with, you know, guest houses and everything, and they're on septic systems.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, you know, so there's some potential there to tie in.
What about over the highway?
Yeah,
Can
well, we've had inquiries, like I say, from these 2 lots right here, we've had inquiries on this lot here too. And so, now, there's also a sewer right here, okay, that is a little closer, so there's a couple different options where they might tap in. But clearly, this line could also serve some of these areas here, because they're gonna eventually extend sewer to the east part of their property too. And that might be a better way. This line right here is about 8 feet lower than, that line there, so that the lower depth provides some benefit too. And so it does mean it could serve a larger area.
Okay.
So I think it's something you can go through and, look at the numbers and make some estimates. But, I see more, from what we've seen in the past, more housing and, or mixed use, or live-work kind of units where there's, workspaces down below, living spaces up above. I think there's some potential on some of these lots that too. I mean, with those would all want to be on the sewer. So there's definitely some potential there. But, yeah, most developers do not like recapture, I'll tell you that, because it gets drug out over a long time, you never know, it's uncertain, and, you could go through a whole cycle. If you go into a down cycle, that's happened on a couple projects where they build the project, down cycle happens, nothing happens for 10 years. It's happened in a couple instances I've been involved with, and they walk away with nothing. So recapture is, not the greatest from a developer standpoint, but certainly giving them some kind of a time flexibility that might help out, to some degree. It's just, unfortunate. You would think that a lot like this would be very easy to serve with sewer, but, it turns out that, it's a more complicated thing.
Can I add something, Rob?
Sure.
Also, we were tying into a fixed point that was already there, so that was a starting point.
That was already very deep.
Yeah, so at Oak Grass there,
Uh-huh,
that stub was already there, well, obviously, which is already tied into the town system, so.
Right.
That's a fixed point, you can only go up from there. So
Sure.
there was quite a big calculation that we did.
yeah, that's why it ended up being so deep once you got up closer to the property.
It actually is
Right.
good that it's deep.
They use minimum slope. Yeah, it's actually good that it's deep.
It's actually a good thing that it's
Coverage.
deep.
Right.
It gives them more flexibility, but by keeping there's only 4 feet of drop from this whole entire line, 1,100
that's
feet of line. So, you're dropping like 3/4 of an inch every 20 feet of pipe.
Yeah.
So it's a really, I have to say, it's very challenging to build that. You really have to be very, very careful, and I know the contractor, they were probably dealing with less experienced people, and, they had a hard time doing it. They're not the only ones. I mean, there's a lot of contractors struggling with that, and particularly when this was happening in 2020, 21, there was no help. Contractors were so busy, everybody was so busy. It was a very challenging time. But, they ultimately came through. They continued to persevere. Their engineers were really good to work with. They hired a third-party engineer to inspect it. And they kept all the, inspection results and everything. So, they did it the right way. And, you have to give them credit for that. And it was a very expensive, thing to build, just knowing about it. But, I don't know, some additional time might help, the tap fees are a challenge.
What's your opinion on tap fees? I mean, basically, from what I understand, what we should be doing, tap fees should be almost set aside, because that's going to be the money we need to pay for the maintenance on this line in the future.
Yes, this line will require more maintenance, obviously, it's flatter, it requires sewer jetting more frequently, but that's still relatively a small piece of the puzzle compared to what it would cost to maintain a lift station. Power and the pumps and all the mechanics that go into a lift station. Almost entirely, ask any engineer, they'll tell you, put the line flat and deal with the sewer jetting as you need to, much better than a lift station. no, Monica's had some. Hands on,
Monica's
so there
saying
you go.
it.
You know, so, and like I say,
Oh my gosh.
you've got 10 of them, and more probably in the future,
Right.
as other places that. So the fact that this was able to be done without a lift station is a real benefit. And so I think that's a positive, you know, to bring up. And like they say, they persevered in a tough time to get it done and get it done right and meet all the requirements. And, and unfortunately, 17 feet in places, you know, that's just really, really challenging. And, it was like a major public works project as opposed to some little developer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think consideration needs to be given to them about, you know, what they went through and what they did. Certainly, they really do need to be paid for the stubs, you know, that were put in. That's just, you know, no brainer there. And then, you know, the town will get money back when they tie in, you know. In fact, what they did, when they put the stubs in, they raised them up so that they're, you know, shallower,
Yeah.
so they are easier to tap into. And that was, you know, some additional cost.
Yeah, there's fiber optic lines running along.
Right.
And also I wanted to point out, it would have been probably impossible to dig alongside that 8-inch water line.
Yeah.
It would have collapsed.
Yeah.
It's a pressurized line that serves people.
Right, you,
So
too
on
risky
our
to do.
development, we pre-installed sewer line just for future phases, just so we could run the water line, because otherwise we're gonna use it back.
Yeah,
Because
usually
it's
like
absolutely not.
put your sewer in first
So water line sits about
because, you know,
8 feet above the sewer line.
right. And water, you can bend and move, you know, a little bit easier. Sewer, you pretty much have to stay on grade. So normally the sewer goes in first. And unfortunately, in this alignment, the water was already in.
Right, so it's another reason why.
So another reason why it went where it did.
Right.
And, you know, I think again, you know, when you look back why it did, it makes sense. It was just a tough, even there, it would have been a tough line.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, you know, it would have been very tough, just because of the depth. And, but now it's, you know, and again, this is a big project, you know, this is not just 1 or 2 units. If it was 1 or 2 units, we probably would have looked at something different, but, you know, being a big project is like, yeah, let's do this right. And these guys were willing to do it, you know, and I think that was a big factor. Anyway, those are a couple of the main points, so, anyway, I'll leave this map with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Bob. It's
So-
very easy to visualize it with that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, sure, bet,
Yeah.
sure.
So, these guys might have more questions for you, but I just wanted to ask you if you had a recommendation for us, in your experience, what you think would be a good way to go
Well,
for it.
definitely additional time on the recapture.
Okay,
I think that 5 years is just so short. Maybe 10 years is a better number. I'm dealing with this on another project over in Victor, Idaho right now. Okay, we're talking about recapture and whatever. And that developer put in a sewer line and he didn't get any taps until, you know, after his recapture timed out.
Oh.
So, you know, it is a challenging thing. But again, that was just, you know, the business cycle. You know, he built it at a time when the cycle was going down and it didn't come back up again till after his time
Within
ran
that
out.
time period, right.
Now, Mary McSorley did well with 20 years. You know, I think she's still got a couple of years left on hers. The town actually paid her some recapture because when the junction lift station was connected, it connected up to her line and she did get some recapture. There's a formula in that agreement. That was a carryover from when the town purchased the North Star utility. So that recapture agreement just carried through. That whole purchase was the town took over all the agreements that were in effect. There was no negotiating that. That was just part of the sale. It wasn't a lot of money. I think she might have gotten $10,000 or something like that.
what are your thoughts on the price of the line, the 250 grand?
Like I say.
What the town's obligation should be on that?
Yeah, it's really, you know, like I say, more of a municipal kind of line as opposed to just, you know, a small line serving a, you know, a development. It's a bigger line. It has more than enough capacity to handle anything that would happen in that area. And it was a lot more involved than I think any of us, you know, thought it was going to be. And so, yeah, maybe there's some you know, adjustment that the town could make to that. I don't know what a good number would be, but I think you got to be careful too, because you know, you're going to have the next developer asking the same request.
Right.
That's the tricky part, and I'm sure your attorney's, not happy with that statement, but and rightfully so. I mean, it's you know, most places do have recapture agreements, you know, in their, you know, communities. And that's how they deal with it. You know, they say, okay, you wanna have water and sewer service, you gotta put the lines in. And when other developers come in, yes, you should get credit for it, and that's how they deal with it. So you know, recapture might be the better way in terms of fairer for other developments that you come in. But this was a very expensive line. I hope that, like when True Grit, or if any of those guys come in, I don't think it's gonna be
That
quite as
complex,
involved as
yeah.
that is. But,
Yeah.
and they were dealing with a contractor who had difficulties too. That was a big part of it. You know, I kept getting these phone calls about, well, this one manhole didn't line up. I was like, what? You know? Fortunately, you know, it was set up so that they owned the line. You know, they had to meet the standards, and the town wasn't taking it over until it met all the standards. And, you know, now I think, you know, that's why it's a good time to have the discussion. They've done that, and they had to rebuild it a couple times in places. But you know, now it's an asset, and it'll last a long time. You know, it was built well, and you know, this is a 50-year line. You know, this is going to go on for a long time. But yeah, some additional time on the recapture certainly makes good sense. And you know, again, I don't know. You know, once you do it for one, you do it for the others. But I think that's less of an impact to you too, because you're not paying for that. You know, they're getting the money, and so the developer who comes in next pays for it. And so in a lot of ways, you know, I don't see it as a big impact to the town if you do it through the recapture.
And then you obviously think pay for the stubs.
Yes, pay for the stubs, and then when people tie in, they pay you for those stubs. Now, in some recapture agreements, just to make it fair, but also more complicated, there's a depreciation factor and then also an inflation factor. So you can decide if you want to add those things to it too. Depreciation reduces the price because, you know, the value, you know, these things have a life to them. It's probably more important in something like a lift station where you have mechanical parts and everything. These sewer lines will last, you know, a long time. I
Right.
don't think there's anything. But then there's also the inflation factor, because if you try to build this line in 5 years, you know, what is it gonna cost?
Right.
I hate to think of what it would cost. But, you know, that's not uncommon to have those built into these recapture agreements. And I can send you one that we're working with in Victor, which, you already have one. You know, we've already done that.
Have an ordinance.
Yeah.
You have an ordinance,
Yeah.
okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So you already have an ordinance, so you already have it. But again, I think 5 years is gonna time out pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And it's just not fair to these guys. And it's the best way, in my mind. I don't see why, you know, if another developer comes in and wants to use the line, they pay to use the line, doesn't cost the town any money to do that, and it gives them some of the money that they've spent.
Sure.
The biggest problem for them is it could drag on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's
It's still.
time value of money, you
Yeah.
know, reduces the value of that. But that's my 2 cents I'll throw in there.
What are your thoughts on the fees, the tap fees? And
Well, I was surprised that they raised the fees to $900. I didn't know about it. I knew it was
$9,000?
to 9,000.
Yeah.
I knew it was happening, and I didn't have any real input into it. But, you know, I was like, yeah, you gotta raise the fees, that makes sense. 5,000 was a fee, you know, that was when the plant was first built, you know, in 2000, you know, when they first did the planning, 2005, 2006. And so that's a fee that's way, way out of date. And, you know, there was a reason for that. It was to encourage development, and it did. And then, you know, maybe it could have been on a smaller percentage, and then, you know, but be thinking about raising it, you know, as time goes on. You definitely need to raise the fees, you know, I don't think there's any doubt to that. It's just a matter of, maybe that was a bigger jump.
It's just kind of unfortunate timing for them being in the middle of their.
Really
development.
unfortunate,
Yeah.
really unfortunate, yeah, and that's and they're a project with a lot of, you know, tap fees that they're looking at, so, yeah, they get hit very significantly. And again, I don't know, you know, what, I know when I first started working, there were people that did pay the $8,600. And, I'm sure they were not at all happy when it went down to $5,000.
I bet, yeah.
And I think they wanted their money. I don't think they got any money back, but, you know, that's what happens, and happens in a lot of places. But it made sense at the time. I think the fee schedule, the fact that it went per bedroom versus per unit, that was very helpful, because, you know, we're seeing more smaller units, you know, 1 and 2 bedroom units, where they're paying two, you know, so a 3-bedroom unit pays the full, you know, ERU 9,000.
Right,
And so, you know, a 2-bedroom unit would pay 6,000.
right,
Which isn't terrible, you compare it to other cities and other places.
yep,
A 1-bedroom paying 3,000, that's not terrible.
yeah, it's not bad.
And so I think that's a big factor too, when you look at it that way, because, you know, a lot of the projects you're seeing are gonna be multi-family units, or, you know,
Sure,
some with 1, some with 3 bedrooms. A 4-bedroom still pays the same, you know, as a full ERU, the 9,000.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's another benefit that was changed. But, yeah, I think, you know, certainly looking at recaptured time frame, just, I think makes common sense. You know, the fee schedule, you know, that's a harder one, because, you know, the town needs the investment. It's mostly for their wastewater plant. I mean, that's really where most of the money is gone. Not so much, I mean, the lifts, the collection systems certainly cost money, you know, there's, you know, sewer jetting periodically, and, you know, they deal with the lift stations, but really the big cost is at the wastewater plant. One of the things we talked about, you know, that your power bills are probably gonna go up, because we've got to, you know, increase some of the ventilation to meet some of the code issues, and, you know, so all of a sudden, you know, there's costs there that, you know, you're gonna be seeing. And
well, we still have this $2.4 million
Yes.
loan.
And you got the
Worry
loan,
about
that's
for-
right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, on top of that,
Yeah, and then
Thanks.
A
retreat.
lot of expenses.
but yeah, I think we need to keep figuring out ways to pay that stuff down.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No, like I say, it's in a good place right now, you know, I think you've got, you know, the ability to keep making the payments, but it's a long ways off. What is it? 41, I think is the,
Yeah, they extended it.
Wow.
they extended it, so, yeah, the maturity on the 2 million, I think, is 2041. And then the other loan, there's a second loan that matures in 2031 for the 100,000, and then the 2.3 is 2041. So
Right, okay.
that's out there.
Does anyone have any questions for Bob? Any background?
Okay, great.
Thanks.
All right.
Something else might come up, but I appreciate
Yeah,
you
no,
being
I'll be
here. Yeah.
sitting right.
Jim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think if we're worried about precedent, the idea to seal that is, we'll just have to make some changes in our land use development code, so to prevent this in the future, and make it very clear that developers are responsible to bring water and sewer. And we already have ordinances that say if you're in a reasonable distance from the water and sewer, you're supposed to connect to the town sewer. So I don't know that that's a decent argument, but this has got to be something that developers are put on notice, that this is part of the cost that they have to figure in when they're coming up with this development. And possible that we need to also put in the land use development code is that decisions are made by the town council, that there's no one person can represent something or negotiate it, that this has to be just something done by the town council. And all of these are just ideas for, so that we can stop the precedent, you know?
Right.
We've got the mess that we're in here right now. I mean, I'm very simple when I do my math. You probably, as an accountant in future value, but when I take and go and look at 160 unit development and just take the cost of the sewer, the $250 some odd thousand over the life of the sewer, that's $4.46 a month. And I understand they're not getting their rent all at once, but when you amortize it out, it's not that big of a cost. Yes, it is at the beginning, but that's how you get it so you can build your development. I may be being naive, that's why I'm not a developer.
Right.
But I think we need to come up with something that, like Bob says, maybe we need to restructure or amend our recapture ordinance to give more time on that, so that they would be able to benefit from that better. As far as the fees, I mean, we've got another development online, or the hotel online, that if we're changing fees for these guys, we have to change those. Those are things we need to take into consideration.
Thanks for that.
Thanks for not giving you an answer.
No, that helps, but, yeah, I mean, I forgot about the other development.
Is there something we can have moving forward if there is a fee change? Can we,
What's that?
if there's a fee change during the development, is there something that we can put in place moving forward that either they pay at the beginning of their project, whatever that fee is, or we allow for that variation
I
moving
mean,
forward?
that we could either do by ordinance, and what I'm trying to get away from is the back and forth and
Right.
these ideas with the developer agreement. I know that developer agreements are part of the business, but when I've gone through and looked at other developers agreements, none of them have anything that I can find that says, hey, the town's gonna give you a credit so that you put the line in. The developer's agreement that I've looked at, have requirements as to who, what, where, and how, as far as inspections and specifications, because the development is something new that isn't anticipated by their master plan or their design specifications for the town. So, I mean, we've gotten in the habit of doing these things in the past, and to me, this is what I feel comfortable, because one person may get this out of it, these folks come along, and I'm not picking on you, Drew, okay? They get something different just based on, persistence and negotiating ability.
Right.
And I think the idea of government is to level the playing field in, a capitalist system. We want everybody to play under the same rules, and when we have an issue that comes up that's different from the rules, we have a developer's agreement that comes in until we can get our rules into place, or to see if it's even necessary to do something that we need to change the rules for the future. Because another thing I'm always harping against is the little Susie laws. These guys have all heard it. There you have it. Little Susie has an accident, so we come up with a law to prevent this from ever happening again, and it may be, little Susie either should have bought a lottery ticket or, this thing's happened to them. And so all of a sudden we make a law, just because this happened. So those are the things that we need to look at when we're making laws, so.
So you think during the whole land use development code update, we need to be writing in these things?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the basic things that go into developer, our expectations are X. You need to,
Right.
if you're within this distance of water and sewer line, you need to do it. You need to, negotiate your easements, and you need to understand you're gonna turn that over to the town. Your benefit is we're gonna have your recapture agreement ordinance, but that's also gonna be on your back to
Right.
get that.
You negotiate that
Yeah,
directly with
exactly.
everyone that comes out,
Yeah,
right?
So, so these are things that just need to go into the change of the land use development code.
Okay.
So.
But we do have a unique situation here.
We
with
do
the
have a
timing
unique situation here.
And,
Potential of a couple of unique situations.
yeah,
Yeah, and so that's what we need to decide, I guess, or come in and decide next week is how we're gonna do it. I mean, I appreciate that, Mr. Hale says, well, if we can work out, these things as far as the, connection fees, that may be a resolution to a vote. If we give it to them, we need to give it to whoever else is affected by this, and understand that, yes, that was a big jump that, builders weren't probably anticipating when they were planning things out 2 years ago. So, yes, does it set a precedent, but I think we can take care of that precedent by changing the code.
the code. Mhm. All right, any more comments, discussion?
Christine, off the top of your head, how many developers could be in this special situation?
You're gonna ask me that. I'm gonna say, well, one of them has, decided to put their project on hold specifically because of the, fee increase situation. I'm gonna say there's probably a good 4, possibly 5, but I would be safe with 4.
But have they paid already? Is this a question of, has the 4 paid already?
What the Cobblestone, has.
Okay,
Elkhorn Meadows, the townhouse project, they stalled on that one, so,
So Cobblestone paid in full?
Cobblestone has paid their fees and their water connections. Not completely all of their sewer connections, because they were in a phased system.
And to the best of your knowledge,
I'm gonna say probably maybe 3 of them.
Okay,
to the best of your knowledge, all these that you know, we're also given the chance of, hey, rates are going up.
do you wanna
If
pay?
you'd like to pay in full.
Cobblestone came after the fact, so, so
That's
they
different.
already paid that increased rate. I tried to give as much notice as possible,
Yeah.
because if you guys recall, there was that special meeting to pass that ordinance. So, I had given a bunch of people that I spoke with, this ordinance is gonna pass in September, at the September meeting, but it was,
It was in
escalated.
August that you were
it
contacted.
was escalated to the August meeting, so I tried to forewarn everybody as much as I possibly could, but.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Dickerson, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in here.
Andrea, do you have anything you want to add?
Lots to ponder,
Yeah.
lots of information.
And so, you guys have to tell me, so at our town council meeting in 2 weeks, we want to have some sort of resolution to this, okay? So do we need to come up with something prior to that?
I would prefer that we have.
Sooner rather than later?
You guys can come in and,
Yeah.
yeah, but I want you guys to tell me and, you know, what you want me to send back. I guess that's the difficult part in this is, my records show that, Mr. Cottom sent me a draft development agreement last July. And I mean, it had dates of 2019. It didn't even correspond with, and then the next one came about in October. And that's the one I sat and picked apart. And that's kind of where things stopped at this time. But I was just picking it apart as far as the legal aspect, not as far as the negotiation aspect, which I feel should be done as we're doing right now. This is what we're doing, so we come back and we say, okay, Drew, you guys, this is what, you know, I guess we can just send them a letter that these are the ideas. This is your idea from council, or mayor, and be
Okay,
prepared to
but
address.
how do we technically do it? If, in this meeting, we can't make any decision.
We're not making any decisions, you can
Okay,
just,
but before the next meeting, that we want to present them something, how do we, as a group, come up with a decision to tell you?
I think each one of you should email me what your thoughts are. We put it together as a letter, and these are the things that we're going to discuss before we make our final decision on Tuesday night, so you're prepared to know how to address these arguments.
Okay,
And it may or may not be modified. that
And,
evening.
yeah.
okay.
These are the solutions that we've come up with. A, B, C, D, E.
When would you like all that information from us by?
Oh, for a week.
Yesterday?
A week from now would be fine.
Okay,
No
so
later than a week.
Yeah.
a week from,
Yeah,
by no later than a week from today,
Yeah.
we'll.
because it's
each of
2
us-
weeks from today we have town council.
Right,
So I can put that all together in a day and send it out to Mr. Cotter.
okay,
And, I mean, and I won't put your name, I'll just put option A, option B, option C, option D. Okay? How's that?
that sounds good.
Okay.
Does that work for you? Go on,
I was
there,
just gonna
Drew,
ask
thanks.
Just wanted to say, I know you guys are trying to,
Okay.
you're gonna collectively come up with as individually. Sorry, individually, yeah, come up with as
Right.
being as objective as you can be. Have we presented enough information for you to have?
I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
Do you have all the information you need from us? I feel like I don't know if I have any more information to give,
The
to
one
be
in-
honest with you.
One thing is, do you have the stubs, how much you would,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on our, we have the receipts for everything. Everything is well
can you
documented.
just make sure you send that to Monica and myself? And
Yeah,
we'll
that's
distribute it? Just what that dollar amount was for those 5 stubs, if you can figure that out.
Yeah, and I have what was on the bid. I don't know what it ultimately actually cost, but that's what we can go off of, so.
Just, yeah, like,
And we've got all the documentation. I know, as Bob pointed out, it was very expensive, but that's all 100% dollars out of our pocket. There's no markup or
right,
the significant time we've put in there. We're not trying to make money off this. And that's the whole thing, with the recap. We're not trying to make money off this line.
right.
Yeah, so,
I
but
think
that's,
recapture, hopefully you get some opportunities, but I think that's a way that you guys can, get some of this money back, but, any other questions for Drew while we've got him up there?
I think we need clarity on the agreements that you've made with for the easements.
okay,
Oh, Christine has something to say.
okay,
Okay, don't go away.
all right.
So the question that I have for you, just want to make sure that I'm on the right page. The sewer connection, you're going to furnish at no cost to them, one connection and one tie-in. What exactly does that mean?
I wish Dale were here. My understanding of that is a tap. So like we were gonna pay, the tap fee
So the
that they
tap,
would
the
have
tap,
to pay.
the tap, the stub tap is already there, and then the $9,000 or whatever the
Yeah, I
magical
mean, at the
number
time,
is.
it was 5,000, but
Okay,
it's
yeah,
like, okay,
but-
you wanna tap your house into this, we will pay the tap fee, so you don't
Okay.
have to.
Okay,
So, yeah, so that's the problem, because I believe with, Mr. Shockey's, it's.
Well, and he's got multifamily on there, but at the time of the
So you're just
agreement,
paying one, not the other.
that's what it says, but at the time, we didn't know that there was multifamily going
So-
in there.
so the way that I'm understanding it, and just so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So one connection, whether it's $5,000, $9,000, it's a connection, and then let's use Mr. Shockey for an example. He has got so many bedrooms, and then I go to my exhibit and go from there.
That would
Right?
be my understanding.
I would think so
Perfect,
too, yes.
okay. The tie-in threw me, that's,
Yeah, and like I said,
Sorry.
that's probably I don't,
Okay.
that's probably a better question for Dale, but
okay.
the layman's term understanding was like, they're giving us an easement. At some point, they're probably gonna wanna tap into that. Let's pay for that so it doesn't cost them any money.
Yeah.
And so, we tear up their yard a little bit, they get access to a sewer line without having to go 1,200 feet on the world's one night. Yeah, so.
The problem with lawyers, Mr. Hale, is when you say, what does this mean? We say, what do you want?
Yeah. It's like paying your taxes. How much do I owe you? You tell me. So, all right.
Well, good. Well, thanks a lot, Drew. For
Thank
being
you. And yeah, like I said, hopefully we can
Yeah.
put a nice, pretty bow on
We've
this.
got a plan of attack, so we'll come up with our individual feelings, I guess, and then we'll get that to you guys here in the near future, and then 2 weeks from tonight, hopefully we can just nail this thing down and everyone goes merrily on their way.
Perfect.
So,
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay, real quick, there's one more thing on our agenda is the ordinance 256, which is the Recreation Board ordinance. Monica, what are the suggested changes?
So, both this one and the tourism board, are similar in that, there was interest in restructuring, the terms so that they cross between administrations, so they'll be staggered.
Yes.
The other thing when we were reviewing them that we noticed is that, the historical council seemed to give the recreation committee a huge amount of responsibility, and not that we don't think they're up to it, it's really, you've probably given them responsibility that belongs to the town and the council themselves, maybe inadvertently. So, because it says they're supposed to operate, manage, and maintain all recreation activities and equipment, and so that's just a bit much.
I don't want to do that.
Just that, Shay, it's no
So
big
Shay's,
deal.
yeah, Shay's gonna be doing it. So in looking at it, I mean, clearly, we want them to do what recreation boards do, but
To
that
have
we
fun.
want the town to manage their own equipment.
Right.
So, so basically, those changes are just to accommodate those things that we've talked about, so pretty simple. Jim, do you have anything else to add?
No,
mean,
I just,
limited that.
I mean, that's what we put in is the staggered terms. I guess there was some kind of, 5-year term may be too long.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah.
That sounds
You're
like prison
half
sentence.
kidding.
Prison sentence is less than that.
I was just doing math, and that's why I'm a lawyer. I'm not a mathematician. So, I mean, you could put it to 3, 2, 1, something like that. I just provided you with language so that you have something to start with, and then the jurisdiction, what Monica was saying is that we change it so the town shall manage all recreation equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
My thoughts would be 1, 2, 3.
Why they don't want.
So do you
want us to take a poll of what everybody wants in the board, like 2 years?
That would be
or you
nice.
guys decide?
Well, I think, my feeling was, we've had some people that have been on the board for a while, and we, give them the reduced sentences. And then we give you newer members the,
Is this precedent?
yes,
Sounds like he's giving them a get out of jail free card.
yeah.
Okay, so, okay.
but-
I don't wanna drag it out, I just was like, 5 years? I mean, I love
5
it.
years
I
is
was trying to stagger it out so that it went longer than the term of the mayor. And that was my simple solution, but I just put it out there to give you something to do.
I think we just have to have a way of, in the future, I would like them to be like 2-year terms, but they're staggered. So, however we do that,
So take a couple
Well,
of
you
them
just start
and make
off
them
with
1-year
one and then-
terms, and a couple of them and make 2-year terms, and then next year we'll appoint the
Start
1
2
years for 2-year going
Yeah.
right,
forward.
so how do we put that in
Oh.
in the new ordinance, so it's retroactive? Or do we say they're all
Can't
two,
retroactive things, that's the problem. So-
can we say they're all 2-year terms?
But the first year, 3 of them are,
2-year terms, odd
1-year term?
numbers, 2-year terms, even numbers, starting at 2023 or
Right, and
24.
in these members, and we assign
Yeah,
certain members to those positions.
yeah,
those
we can just
positions.
sign them, you don't wanna put their names in the
Right.
ordinance and whatnot.
Because then it'll just
Say-
roll in
Yeah.
on the future, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you could have an odd year appointment and then even year appointments. So if you went odd year appointments for 2 years.
Well, even that, you could do a 3-year.
Yeah, 3. and
And
then
that
a
way you
2.
get that crossover in between councils and mayor. That would be something.
So what are you saying?
So we could just say on the, let's just say the appointments made on the odd year following the enactment of this will be for 2 years following that date. Does that make sense? So the appointment doesn't come, whoever gets appointed 2 years from now, let's say in 2025, then they'll be going to 2027, and then every
okay.
year after that will be
Okay,
staggered
Yeah.
to 2 years.
if you could just clarify that in the, I think.
is that how you did the tourism board?
I did the tourism board the same as I did this one. so.
Do you want to have him do it that way
Yeah.
as well, I think?
I think so too.
Then they're consistent?
That's a 3-person
Yeah.
board, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good
I just do the
suggestion,
tourism
Mom.
board by the month versus the year.
Right?
3-month term.
No, jail,
How punished do you want to be?
jail sentence. Well, that sounds good. I like all this, so, does anyone have any other comments on this? Seems
Great
pretty,
idea. Yeah.
pretty well dialed in. Yeah, do you have all the information you need on that? Okay. All right, sounds good. Anything else from anybody? Shay, come on, please.
Real quick, fee structure on the civic center, that would be another
Oh.
conversation another day.
Yeah, so we've had some conversations about it where, Dawn's actually working on she's taking, because as I looked at it, and I'm sure there's a lot of information, there's a lot of different, charts. And so we're taking that information, including what your suggestions, putting it all on one spreadsheet so that we can look at it, and sit down. We're gonna sit down with Eric once we get that all together so that we can go from there, because flipping through the pages it was not a.
We're
yeah,
gonna
it-
take
it
your
just wasn't-
suggestions and kind of figure out like what we've been doing, and like we already have a bunch of bookings for the summer, so it doesn't make sense to necessarily like change too much of that, you know what I mean? But,
We just want it to be used more.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just hope those
No, we agree.
changes can
and then
facilitate that.
do we need to have a resolution or something to update the fees, or what do we need to do?
That's a good.
Is that how they do that, by as resolution or through the budget?
What's that?
To
Our-
update.
When we update
schedule.
fees, how do you
You can
recommend?
do that as by resolution.
Okay.
Then I have one
Yes,
quick thing. I just got a email from the outdoor rec for the grant. Just saying, we understand that warmer weather is on the horizon. Your organization is likely already planning for summer. With that in mind, we would like to provide an update on your application to the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Grant Program. Applications in the ARPA portal are currently in the final levels of approval for funding. As soon as we are notified of the project awards, we will contact you via email. So in other words, no news yet.
Do I need to just head down to Cheyenne and get it done?
No, these are, this is the Fed.
Oh,
That's why.
so I need to go to Washington?
You go to Washington.
No problem. All right, thanks everybody for coming and sitting through this.
Turn
Yeah,
off,
motion adjourned.
turn off your microphone.
So, you guys, I don't know